Everybody, so new house.
Again?
Same podcast. So we changed the house again. So this is a new house.
Yeah.
We'll give you a tour because that house is really cool. So we're going to say what we said before. We're going to stay here.
Yeah, exactly. We say that a lot. I mean, then we don't do it.
Yeah, but we mean it when we say it. So there you go. So this is a new house and we're going to stay here.
I think we're the two most impulsive people, and together we...
No.
Well, we moved into the same street, but we just were able to rent this for a year and up to 2 years.
No, like 30 months. And then anyway, you guys,
anyway.
I don't think you care. But
for no reason we're talking about
like
it.
this is, thank you for giving them the details, but I don't think anybody cares really.
Yeah,
anyway,
no, I don't think
so I put the question, are we talking Cordiceps and we are Venom, or how to get better at CrossFit? You voted Cordiceps, which makes me happy, which means next week we will go over how to get better at CrossFit.
It's a good question since the open is going to
start. We're gonna talk want versus need, which is a little bit actually the conversation today about the Cordyceps. So what is a Cordyceps? Cordyceps is a fungus. We're gonna talk about the zombie ants and more because I want to offer an idea that goes way past the idea of the fungus. By the end of this podcast, you'll understand what I mean. So there is a TV show which I will not critique, don't worry, out on HBO right now, called The Last of Us, that is actually a very famous game. Okay. That was controversial because the first one was really cool and the second one went to shit with the whole crowd literally taking a 90-degree to the right, to the left in that case, on the game, and the girl, the hero goes from a cool guy, like a veteran survivor that learns to love again through his relationship with his kind of adopted daughter, and then he dies because he's a worthless man, and she turns into some type of, I won't say the word, but anyway, if you know what The Last of Us 2 is about, you know what I mean. Anyway, the point of the zombies in The Last of Us is that they are not zombies in that sense, they are being taken over by a fungus. That fungus in The Last of Us was actually modeled after a real fungus that is called a Cordyceps. Now, there are many, many, many different types of that specific one, but we're going to talk about one today that affects ants and turn them into what is called zombie ants.
Yeah, it's freaky.
Right, so when I say it's interesting, it should be terrorizing as a conversation that we are not looking at it going, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah.
So, the Cordyceps, the fungus, goes in spores, right? So think mushroom, but more like mold, really. Goes in spores, affects an ant, which at first will appear completely normal for a week or two, but eventually that ant will start to behave erratically, weirdly. And then eventually what that ant will do is he will start to climb up at a very specific height that has a very specific temperature and humidity. Then out of that will clamp into the leaf he climbed onto, die, and out of its neck will grow the fungus that will then go into some type of a bulb that emits more spores onto the ant hill that is beneath it. So that's why it's called a zombie ant. So let me say that again. The fungus gets into the ant, makes it go up a leaf, clamp down, dies then, not before. No. Only then does it die.
But also a few weeks after it gets infected.
Right. And then a appendage, a type of thing, grows out of its neck so that it can spread more spores onto more ants into the ant hill.
When I saw this for the first time, I didn't believe it was real. That's
right. So I have so many questions.
Yeah. Well, that how does it know? It's my first question that comes to my mind.
Right. Okay.
How is this?
So this is going to go even better because for the longest time we thought so it takes over, the brain of the ant and makes it, well, turns out this was tested and the spore of the Cordyceps in the zombie ants do not touch the brain of the ant. It only touches the body, muscle, structure of the ant, but does not go after the brain. It avoids specific parts of the nervous system and the brain, but goes into basically controls the body and everything else. So that means that if
how does that fungus know to do that?
Okay, first of all, that means the ant somewhere, if the ant were to be sentient and conscious, means has no control over it. No, that means he can see what's happening, just cannot control it.
Exactly. So they would.
Right, so it's in prison in his own body. Yeah. Right, so that's not scary enough, first of all. And second of all, if he doesn't go into the brain of the ant, how the fuck does he know where it's at? Because it does not have access to the nervous system, which would be freaky on its own. But because, the idea was that maybe it emits some type of thing in the brain, like a psychedelic in the brain. Yeah? No, doesn't touch the brain. So that means he has full control of the body of the ant. He needs 2 weeks to learn the ant. That's it. A week or two, he has full control of the ant. That should scare the living shit out of everybody. Anyway. So, and then he knows what the temperature and everything is for its own good, and then makes it act a certain way. How does he know how far off the ground? Like, where's the sensory equipment so that makes him know all this? Does he borrow the one from the ant, but it doesn't touch the brain? Right. So, by the way, since the fungus does not have a brain either,
right, that's what.
Who's deciding?
That's what I'm like.
So that means that the fungus is a communal intelligence.
Yeah.
Like, I remember the Thing from John Carpenter, 1980, whatever.
I was not
anyway,
even close to
this is kind of that. It's a communal intelligence. So now we're going back to that stuff I was talking about the Japanese subway station where they put like a fungus on it, and he started to draw lines of communication that was better than the lines that was created for the Tokyo subway system. It's in another podcast.
Yeah.
So the Cordiceps.
I don't know which one is freakier, by the way. This one definitely.
This one. No, but no. There's more freaky. We're gonna go over. But let's go back with the Cordiceps for a second, because it means that first of all he has complete control of the body of the ant, knows not to touch the brain, so that there's no conflict. So he just isolates the brain of the ant just so he can take over control. It takes him 2 weeks to fully control a living thing, sentient. Maybe not sentient, but it's an ant. It still has a thing of its own. That's insane. It controls muscle, controls everything. But then again, directs itself somewhere for survival, which I understand. But again, where is the directing principle? Yeah. Someone has to say we're going that way.
Also,
who's we?
How does it know which tree to climb in to spread the thing?
Well, he's going for exposition, temperature, height.
Yeah,
so he has the way to sense what is the best height for the maximum exposure. Yeah, right, so crazy. The thing is, a fungus is the oldest living creature on Earth. Like way back in the day, before there were trees, they were human, because we have, we know now, the trees were made out of fungus. They were not trees, they were just humongous mushrooms, if you want, because that's what a fungus is. But like, size of trees. But so he created, all the swamps were just that. Were just a humongous fungus. There's a guy who goes on Joe Rogan all the time, I forget his name, I forget his name. And he talks about that, where like fungus can go around like square miles of the same unit, technically. So, but look at the brain. Right, so let me explain where I'm going with this, because I want to talk about intelligence. That's what really the podcast is about. Is we assume that intelligence is our capacity to say I, me, and all that stuff. I have a feeling that what we call intelligence is just social intelligence. It's just we're really, really, really smart chimps who have learned to live in society, make it advance and everything. But there is another type of intelligence, the one like that fungus that found a way through Tokyo, that is more pattern-based and everything. What if deep inside of us there is another type of intelligence that is not based on the monkey one? Because again, the fungus were the first living creatures on Earth. What if, would it make sense that got integrated within our genetic makeup? That the fungus, because it lives inside, right? Mm-hmm. It's still, through not genetics but epigenetics, still has a relationship with us that it has with all living creatures. Hence the ant. Maybe the zombie ant exists because we're looking at it the other way. The fungus was there first. The ant got there second. So the fungus was always, because he knows the ancestor of the ants, the fungus was always there. The ants came after. So maybe what if the primordial intelligence is the fungus? as seen with the Tokyo subway system? What if that's the first intelligence? And we all basically got plugged to that one. But what if our direct sense of survival, of patterns and everything come from that? What do I mean by this? So there is another parasite that is very interesting. I forget the name as usual, but it can only duplicate itself in the stomach of cats. So what does it do? It goes into mice, affects the mice, right? Same thing, it's a fungus. But then it's going to turn the mice more susceptible to the cat urine, which means it makes the mice go like, so it changes the system of the mouse so that it likes the smell of cat urine. Instead of being scared by it, it actually likes the smell of cat's urine. And it actually changes its behavior, which makes the mouse friendly to the cat. Not for very long, as you can imagine, but the fungus does that. It changes the behavior of the mouse so it becomes friendly to the cat, so it gets eaten, so that the fungus can duplicate itself inside the cat's stomach. Right, but again, maybe it's the other way around. So that means that there is a fungus that changes the behavior of living creatures, sentient, not just an ant, now it's a mouse. So it's a much more complex organism. It's a rodent, it's a mammal, it lives in packs, so it's far more, Kitty, no, sorry, Kitty is on the, if the sound goes to shit, that means it's because Kitty stepped on it. Can you please not do that, sorry. My cat loves iPads.
Oh, is this a cat at this stage?
Yeah, well, it's the size of a dog.
Size of the thing.
Yeah, it's the size of a dog, really, but anyway. Right, so, yeah, it's a big fluffy animal. So that fungus changes the nature of the mouse, makes it not fearful of the cat, but on the contrary, wanting to play with the cat. Again, not for long. Right, and there's so many examples of fungus that are parasites in the sense, but that changes the behavior of the animal in order to, which is pretty crazy. That sounds to me like that intelligence was there first, because it learned to use animals to spread itself. So maybe we're looking the wrong way. The reason is they always been there. We hooked on them, but they are the base. So what if there are different types of intelligence, and this is the base one? And we developed over that. So we took the pattern recognition of the fungus and turned it into a chimp intelligence that is far, far higher in order to live in society. Evolution, right? That would make sense on a number of levels. What I find very interesting about that is a study was made on schizophrenic people. Out of that study, they saw that 50% of them were actually infected with the same fungus. So that study proved nothing, because you can't make any generalization out of a small study and everything. But it could open your way of looking at certain things. Yeah. So what if that fungus actually could affect human behavior? And that schizophrenia thing could be, at least maybe the symptoms of it, could be influenced by the fungus. So they went and infected chimps with that particular fungus, like the same with the cat and the mouse. And guess what? The chimps were attracted to big cats' urine after that more, like they tried to say. Yeah, but there was a time where we were hunted by big cats. Lynx hunted monkeys not so long ago. I mean, it's only 100,000 years, but you know what I'm saying? We were hunted by big cats at some point in our history. So that fungus could very well have had his own, and it's still around. It's still within us. We just don't have big cats to be, that is going to eat us anymore. But when they tested it on the chimps, it worked the same way as they did on the mouse. So what if, so that's why I always say we are Venom. What if our intelligence is actually, like what we think intelligence, we think conscious thoughts. But we know that the system has a lot of things in place that are not conscious whatsoever. Like even your heart keeps doing its thing regardless of your conscious thoughts. There are many, many layers to the system in place that have nothing to do with conscious thoughts. What we call intelligence is just the chimp intelligence, is just social intelligence. And we are very, very proud of that. But what if there are layers of intelligence below that are not human? What if, for example, the most basic pattern recognition for survival is the fungus? intelligence.
There's
Which
something-
sure seems to be going that route.
There's something that's called a gut feeling for a reason.
Right,
I mean,
exactly. So what if that's not the chimp? So my point is, we have to be, because that's going to go into the next podcast of want versus need. I have a feeling humans are not as monolithical as we would like. We think we are. We think we are one creature. Mm-hmm. Like each person is his own creature and is one creature. It's from the outside, it's one thing. On the inside, I have a feeling it's not. That it's a combination of things. That it's a combination of intelligences. It's a combination of things. You know, Plato compared the body to the Senate and stuff like that. Like we know how much the enteric system changes behavior. So, by the way, I'm talking fungus. I'm not talking bacteria.
Well, that's a whole
because we know that bacteria also have their own thing on behavior, even socialization. So there is an entire world of fungus, bacteria, viruses that was in control of Earth for the longest time. We've been around not so long. The multicellular life happened like only 600 million years ago. You have 3 billion years of unicellular life first, and the nervous 800 million years ago. And then the nervous system as we know it got started to get invented about 600 million years ago. So like for most of the time, it was fungus, it was bacteria, it was viruses, it was all those things. They have their own type of intelligence. We discard it because it's over there. I have a feeling that they are part of our functioning system as it is. My point is it might be a lot larger than we understand.
So you're actually saying that the zombie ant is not as freaky as it looks?
Yes, I'm saying that it is very possible that fungi, so plural, are responsible for certain behaviors, at least maybe not responsible for, but could tilt behavior one way versus the other. For example, it'd be very interesting to have that study about schizophrenia and see if the fungus can tilt either way on certain symptoms. You know, we have positive versus negative symptoms. What if, because I remember what is that fungus doing, for example, it makes you more likely to go toward the predator. So is that a freeze mode? Because basically it's the opposite of the flight mode. Right? It turns the flight mode into a flow mode because now it becomes friendly to the cat. Hey, I want to play. Right. By the way, how valuable would that be for life? When you have a panic attack, you go to flight mode, and instead you could direct that into more a flow. Instead of running away from the problem, you go play with it. That could be very done correctly. That could be very valuable. Imagine what that fungus, if used for the right purposes, for example, for anxiety, what that fungus could bring us. So instead of going panic attack, flight mode, you would go flow. Hey, let me go and play toward the problem instead of running away from it. Right, so that's why, like, it's
done
not
correctly though, because that shit
is done incorrectly. Then we have The Last of Us, but that's another problem. Who cares? We're not going to be around for the way the world crowd is going. We're not going to be along for that long anyway. So
you saying fuck it?
yeah, I mean, at this stage, like, look where the internet is going. Like, fuck it. Let's go Last of Us. Let's, bacteria, virus, fungus. Fuck it. I mean, I'm in Brazil. You all die before me. No? I'm just an idea like that. Anyway, so, but imagine if we could...
You're crazy.
If we could understand no, I don't want to say use because imagine Big Pharma playing with that. So that's probably a bad idea.
That's what I was going to say.
But
like, are you sure?
This is how bad science fiction movie starts, obviously. Like a guy like me going like, I bet we could do a lot of good with this. Famous last words, and then we all die within the next few years. Anyway, but imagine the power of a fungus that can do that with a predator, like the mouse and the cat. Imagine what that would do with anxiety. So imagine if those behaviors are tilted not by your conscious thoughts, but by much deeper intelligence, right? And so that would, the idea of free will just took a hit, by the way, but they might be
of the soul in a way too,
right. So they might be different layers of intelligence, and they might be different kinds of intelligence, and we as humans are just an amalgam of all of those. So we are not unique creature in that sense. We are a composite of different intelligences, the chimp being the latest one. But there might be layers of intelligence below that. Fungus for sure, bacteria for sure, viruses, who the fuck knows. But I know one thing for sure, fungus, so fungi and bacteria affect behavior of mammals, in the case of the mouse and everything. I bet you we know they affect the behavior of humans, bacteria. I bet you the fungi do as well.
Yeah.
But what if it's not like, what if we misunderstand? What if it's part of our intelligence? What if it's part of a genetic makeup?
Yeah, what if you are set with a certain type of fungus and bacteria inside of you that decides maybe not who you are, but what you're good at, or
survival mechanisms.
Yeah.
Because obviously that fungus is deciding who's a predator, who's danger to you or not. So it decides, it presides over survival mechanisms.
But then it would
which is very scary. But
yeah.
This is, but so, right, want versus need. So this is why I say we are Venom. All this decision making might not be nearly as simple as we understand. And I get a feeling that when Freud was decomposing conscious versus unconscious, there's a much, much bigger layer to all this.
Yeah.
So want is a chimp, no question. Need might be somewhere else. Need might be in your stomach. So, we talk about the enteric system. Need might come from the enteric system because this is where you have the largest amount of genetic material in your whole body, is in your stomach. And most of it is not you.
Yeah. I feel very attracted to that idea. I feel like that in general too. That
the only way you could study this is you put people in bubbles from the day they're born, like people with weak immune system, and then you see what's up. Problem is weak immune system changes behavior too. So, but anyway, I wanted to talk about that because the idea
perspective that it's not as simple as it looks like.
Want versus need. Anyway, go look at the Cordiceps, go look at zombie ants, and go look at that fungus with the cat and the mouse. And I'm sure if you Google it, you can find the study that was done on.
You should put the links of the videos in the description.
Yeah, because I have the link to the study on schizophrenic people. And 50% of them had the fungus. It doesn't mean anything, right?
Well,
because, again, correlation is not causation. But the idea is fascinating.
Yeah, because the other 50%...
No, plus what does that mean? By the way, it can be by chance. It can just be that the pool of people you picked from is likely to have that fungus because they all eat... They come from the same region.
That's the thing too.
You know what I mean? They eat from the same. So that's the problem. So it's not because 50% of schizophrenia. It's not all people on Earth get 50% of that fungus. It's just that particular group. So it might not mean anything, but then again, it might mean something. For me, it's worth going further into that kind of studying. So because I've always associated schizophrenia and autism, to me they are both. That's why I look into it. They're both sides of the same coin. That means that there would be a fungus somewhere that might affect autism and its symptoms of ASD, for example. So that would give us... So what I want to do is take the testing we're going to do on autistic kids, because we're going to do a lot of gut biome, and ask for the fungus, for the fungi as well, and for that fungus in particular, in fungi as well, and see if we can see a pattern somewhere for ASD versus high functioning. I'd be curious because remember, prediction versus observation. Is it the monkey versus the venom?
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you were saying that the rate of autism is rising, for example, in the West. So, would it then also be possible that the certain bacteria you have are tremendously influenced by where you were born, where your parents were born, etc., etc.?
Is it but that's the question. Is it food? Is it function? The answer is going to be yes to all. It's part function, it's part food, it's part everything. But it's because but that's the same thing. We are a composite of different things, just like society is, just like cultures are, just like people are. When they all come together, you get X. I believe we are humans because we are a composite of the right things.
Right. So that takes the idea of that individualism that you mentioned.
I just think humans are far more complex than we think. And then they go back a long time. Like that's the Akira stuff. But anyway, that's enough for today. Next one will be how to get better at CrossFit. But in the
I
meantime,
want to know the answer to that question, by the way.
what? How to get better at CrossFit? Well, that'll be the next podcast. Anyway, talk to you guys soon.